This was the day that would be remembered forever by the Brown family. The sentence hung in the air like a ghostly whisper as the camera swept across the strained courtroom. Wooden benches lined rows of reporters, journalists, and curious onlookers, all breath held in anticipation of the commencement of a trial that had drawn the nation into its vortex. The air was heavy, weighed down with sorrow and rage. Even the ceiling fans dared not stir. The only sounds were the soft snifflings of those who had loved Garrison Brown and the distant hum of television cameras recording every agonizing moment. Then, the doors in the rear of the courtroom creaked. Heads turned in an instant. A flash of camera bulbs illuminated the courtroom like a lightning storm. Kody Brown walked in, accompanied by two court officers. This was not the Kody that viewers of Sister Wives recognized. There was no longer the assured, suave dad who once smiled before TLC cameras, who spoke enthusiastically about his unorthodox family and his dream of togetherness. This Kody was shattered. His typically flowing curls were disheveled and wild. His face was pale and pinched, as though he had not slept in weeks. His shoulders hung forward, burdened by guilt, or possibly by the oppressive weight of the allegations brought against him. He did not seem the head of a family anymore. He seemed like a man who had lost everything, staring in the face of the possibility of losing what little he had left. Kody's gaze flashed through the courtroom, settling on the women he used to refer to as his wives. Christine sat stiffly, her hands folded tightly across her lap. Her lips were locked in a thin line, but her eyes smoldered with fury and hurt. Next to her, Janelle gripped a wadded tissue, her face white and damp with tears that had been streaming down it for hours. On the other hand, Meri sat rigidly, her body shaking with a combination of anger and sadness. They didn't gaze at Kody with love or even sympathy. They gazed at him like a stranger. No worse. They gazed at him like the enemy. And in so many ways today wasn't about a family fight. It wasn't about a complicated divorce or reality television drama. Today was one of justice. Justice for a young man whose life had been so tragically abbreviated. Only 25 years old, Robert Garrison Brown had been discovered dead in his own residence, the victim of what authorities deemed suicide. But to his closest friends though, Garrison's death wasn't a private loss. It was the heart-wrenching result of the emotional drama that had been brewing in the Brown family for years. The tension between Kody and Garrison hadn't been hidden. Sister Wives viewers had seen cracks in their relationship form over the years. Rough fights, chilly silences, and times when father and son acted like sworn enemies more than relatives. But behind the closed doors, it was so much worse than the cameras ever captured. The prosecutor, a keen, committed woman by the name of Emily Hartman, was poised to reveal those ugly realities to the public. When the judge came in, everyone stood up. The room was quiet, apart from the rustling of robes and the thumping of worried hearts. As the judge sat, the trial began officially. "Be seated," the judge instructed, her voice firm and steady. Everyone sat, with the exception of the prosecutor, who moved purposefully towards the jury box. Her heels clicked on the wooden floor with a rhythm that seemed to signal the start of a war. Emily Hartman didn't lose 1 second. She did not begin with greetings or elaborate explanations. She went directly to the heart, the truth nobody wanted to utter. The world watched this family on television for more than a decade. Emily started, her tone clipped and authoritative. They laughed with them, cried with them, and thought they were viewing a tale of love, solidarity, and resilience. But behind the cameras, there was hurt, there was domination, there was heartlessness. The audience shifted restlessly, murmurs spreading through the gallery. "This case isn't about some run-of-the-mill family brawl," Emily went on, her voice increasing in intensity with each sentence. "It's about a dad who methodically destroyed his own son's spirit. It's about a father who placed his ego and authority over his child's well-being. And today we will demonstrate, absolutely, irrefutably, that Kody Brown did not merely fail his son, he shattered him." Her final words echoed through the courtroom like a crack of thunder. Christine gripped Janelle's hand firmly, both women struggling to remain calm as tears welled in their eyes. Even Meri, always more subdued, pressed her shaking hand against her lips to stop herself from screaming aloud. On the defense team, Kody's lawyer shifted uncomfortably, already feeling the fight ahead. Emily pointed to a giant screen, upon which a beaming photo of Garrison showed. The young man's face beamed with warmth and humor. His neat military uniform pressed crisp, his eyes aglow with pride. "This," Emily whispered, nearly in awe, "is Garrison Brown. He was a son, a brother, a soldier and a friend. He gave his life for his country with honor, and hoped to live a future full of love and purpose. But Garrison never got to have that future, because the one person he needed most turned his back on him." The crowd shifted again, some muffled weeping shattering the strained silence. Emily's voice hardened. In the months leading up to his death, Garrison reached out to his father, begged him for understanding, for connection, for just a shred of compassion. But instead of love, he was met with rejection. Instead of comfort, he was met with anger. Instead of a father's embrace, he was met with cold, cruel words that cut deeper than any weapon ever could. Kody's face went red as he shifted uncomfortably in his seat, shaking his head convulsively. But when he prepared to speak, his attorney seized his arm, whispering frantically for him to remain quiet. Emily continued, relentless. "This trial is not about whether Kody Brown pulled a trigger. He didn't. This trial is one of words as weapons, of emotional abandonment, and of the ruin that comes when a father refuses to love his child freely." She wept as she spoke, and Christine collapsed in full-scale weeping, covering her face with her hands. Janelle put an arm around her, murmuring softly even as her own body trembled with sorrow. Emily addressed the jury, her voice shaking now, not with fear but with emotion. "During the next several days, you will hear testimony from Garrison's family, his mother, his siblings, the same people who watched this tragedy happen in real time. You will read text messages, listen to audio recordings, and view evidence that will leave you no doubt in your mind." Garrison did not lose hope alone. He was pushed there, bit by bit, word by word, until there was nothing remaining. The gallery was utterly silent. Even the reporters who had arrived seeking sensational headlines remained stuck, tears in their eyes. Emily took a deep breath and stepped back. "By the end of this trial," she added quietly but firmly, "we will ask you to hold Kody Brown responsible, not only as a father, but as a man who had the authority to save his son, and declined to do so, because Garrison deserves justice. And today, we stand here to struggle for it." She turned away from her table, taking the figure of Garrison with her, blindingly bright on the screen, like a silent witness. The judge nodded gravely. "Defense?" "Opening statement," she instructed, her voice laden with the enormity of what had been spoken. As Kody's lawyer prepared to speak, the room was still tense, each individual within it aware that this was merely the start of a war that would lay bare the ugliest depths of the Brown family's history. Christine gave Janelle's hand one final squeeze and whispered, "For Garrison." The trial had opened, and nothing would ever be the same again. The air in the courtroom seemed oppressive, as if sorrow itself had joined the onlookers. Christine and Meri sat to Janelle's left and right, offering wordless support as she stood to go on the stand. Her hands shook so hard that she almost lost the tissue she'd gripped since the trial started. The judge spoke her name, and Janelle came to a standstill. This wasn't a witness stand, this was a battlefield. And the words she was about to tell would tear down what was left of the Brown family. Christine moved in close and whispered, "You can do this." Janelle nodded, wiping her own tears hastily before getting up. Her movements were labored, nearly reluctant, as she walked to the witness stand. All eyes in the room were on her, including Kody's. He glared at her with a combination of anger and desperation, as though pleading silently with her not to speak what everyone dreaded that she might. But Janelle would not look at him. She could not. The bailiff moved forward with a Bible. "Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?" Janelle's voice broke as she whispered, "I do." She sat down, straight-backed, her face white but resolute. On the far side of the room, Garrison's picture was projected on a screen, his bright smile trapped in time. Its sight almost shattered her all over again, but she pushed herself to continue. The prosecutor, Emily Hartman, walked slowly toward her, speaking quietly, with respect. Mrs. Brown? I know that this is tough. Thank you for being here. Can you tell us, who was Garrison Brown to you? Janelle's lips quivered. She shut her eyes for a split second, taking a deep breath, before she spoke. He was my son, my middle child, my baby boy. The room seemed to catch its breath. Garrison was everything you could hope for in a child, she went on, her voice choked with emotion. He was a jokester, a warrior, and he loved his family so much. He served his nation. He did everything for his siblings that they asked of him. He was smiling constantly, always looking to make people smile, even when he was suffering within. Janelle's voice broke, and she stopped to wipe her eyes with the tissue still clutched in her hand. Christine quietly sobbed in the gallery, Meri holding her hand in a vice-like grip. Emily nodded softly. Describe his relationship with his dad, with Kody. The question seemed to hang there like a sword. Janelle took a deep breath, her fingers clenched on the edge of the witness stand. No words came out at first. When she did finally speak, she spoke softly, almost a whisper. It began well, she whispered. Kody was thrilled to be a father to Garrison. When Garrison was small, he would play with him, walk him around, read to him at bedtime. Garrison loved him. A small, wistful smile crossed Janelle's lips before it disappeared immediately. But as Garrison grew up, she went on, things were different. Kody became stricter, harsher. It was like he stopped seeing Garrison as a son and started seeing him as someone to control. Garrison was independent, strong-willed. He had his own opinions. And Kody, he didn't like that. Emily leaned closer, her voice calm but probing. Can you give us an example? Janelle nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. During the pandemic, she stated, her voice cracking, Kody laid down these extremely rigid rules for the family. Garrison attempted to abide by them initially, but he also worked. He was working with the National Guard. He was out there putting his life on the line, and he couldn't just stay holed up at home like Kody insisted. She swallowed hard, shaking. One evening, Garrison came home and attempted to speak with his dad. He said, Dad, I'm being careful, I'm doing my best. But Kody, Janelle choked on her words, covering her mouth with her hand. Christine's sobs grew louder from the gallery. Emily's voice was gentle. What did Kody say, Mrs. Brown? Janelle lowered her hand, tears streaming freely now. Kody told him he was reckless. He called his own son selfish, accused him of endangering Robyn and her children. He told her. Garrison was no longer invited in the house. A murmur of shock ran through the courtroom. Even the reporters, accustomed to drama and tragedy, were visibly shaken. Janelle squeezed the tissue so hard that she almost ripped it from her hands. Garrison was crushed, she went on through tears. He kept saying, why doesn't Dad love me anymore? Why is Dad so mad at me? And I did not know what to say, because at heart, I was wondering that too. The prosecutor allowed her time to collect herself before inquiring, and how did this impact Garrison emotionally? Janelle's shoulders curved in defeat, the burden of her recollections too heavy to be carried. He began withdrawing from everyone, she whispered. He cut back on calling his siblings so much. He'd come home from work and just sit in his room, staring at the wall. There were nights I'd hear him crying, and he didn't want me to know. But a mother always knows. Her voice shook as she continued. The last time we really talked, he told me, Mom, it feels like I don't even have a dad anymore. That shattered him, it shattered all of us. Christine hid her face in her hands, while Meri quietly cried next to her. Even some of the jury members wiped away their tears, obviously moved by the unvarnished anguish in Janelle's testimony. Emily's voice hardened, becoming stern. Mrs. Brown, subsequent to Garrison's untimely death, did Kody contact you? Did he apologize or accept responsibility for putting pressure on their relationship? Janelle's face hardened. No, she snapped, her tone now harsh. Kody's first words to me weren't, I'm sorry. They weren't even, how are you managing? He asked me if there was something in Garrison's phone or on social media that would make him look bad on television. Gasp followed gasp in the courtroom. Kody slammed his hand on the table, red with anger. Liar, he bellowed. I never made that statement. The judge rapped her gavel. Mr. Brown, one more word and you're out of this courtroom. Kody slumped into his seat, fuming. His lawyer reached out, whispering frantically in his ear. but Kody's jaw was still squeezed tight. Emily grabbed hold of Janelle's hand once more. Her voice resumed to a soothing calm. "And how did that make you feel, Mrs. Brown?" Janelle's shoulders trembled as she sobbed freely now. "It made me see that the man I wed, the man I believed would shield our children, was not there anymore. Perhaps he'd been dead for a very long time, and I'd simply failed to notice." She looked over at Kody, her eyes burning with pain and fury. "My son was entitled to love. He was entitled to a father who would support him, not destroy him. But Kody pushed him away when he needed him most. And now Garrison is gone forever." The room was dropped into stunned silence. Emily gave the jury a moment to digest Janelle's words before speaking softly. "Thank you, Mrs. Brown. No further questions." As Janelle returned to the stand, she almost collapsed into Christine's arms. The two women clung to one another, crying together as Meri enveloped both of them in a hug. From his own table, Kody sat tense and still, his expression unreadable. But inside, he knew that everything Janelle had said had hit the jury right in their hearts. The judge announced a brief recess, but no one in the room budged. The picture of Garrison grinning from the screen appeared to sit in judgment over them all, a bitter reminder of the life lost and truth no longer buried. When the trial resumed, Christine would testify, and if Janelle's words had chipped at the veneer of Kody's defense, Christine's would blow it to smithereens. The fight for justice was just starting. The courtroom remained thick with emotion when the bailiff's voice boomed out, "The next witness to be called. Christine Brown, please stand up." For an instant Christine did not move. Her limbs were immobile, her fists curled on her thigh. She had anticipated this moment. She had practiced her speech 1,000 times in her head. But now that it had arrived, the burden of it almost too much to bear. Janelle, who sat next to her, put a shaky hand on Christine's knee. "Your turn," she whispered, her tone low but full of assurance. "Garrison's for this." Christine nodded, a solitary tear running down her cheek. She stood up slowly, every step towards the witness stand slow, as if moving through quicksand. All eyes in the courtroom tracked her, the jury, the media, even Kody himself. Kody's glower seared into her back. His jaw was set, his fists bunched on the defense table. If appearances were fatal, Christine wouldn't have gotten halfway around the room. But Christine didn't flinch. She had stood up to Kody's wrath before. She had lived for years in submission to him. This day, she would confront him, for the last time, not as his wife, but as his accuser. The bailiff approached, extending the Bible. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?" Christine's voice didn't shake. "I do." She sat down in the witness chair, tucking her back straight as if bracing for war. She wasn't here to cry. She wasn't here to beg for compassion. She was here to tell the truth, no matter how repulsive it was. The prosecutor, Emily Hartman, moved slowly, her face calm but stern. "Mrs. Brown, thanks for coming in today." Emily started. "Can you share a little bit about your history with Kody Brown?" Christine had a laugh that was not at all humorous, a quick, bitter sound that caused the room to become cold. "My relationship with Kody," she spoke slowly, "was founded on lies and control. For years he played a loving husband and father. But behind closed doors, Kody didn't care about love. Kody cared about power." The gallery murmured, whispers spreading like wildfire. Kody shifted restlessly, but said nothing. His lawyer leaned in, whispering something in his ear, but Christine's words had already lingered like venom. Emily nodded, encouraging her to go on. "Can you tell me what you mean by power?" Christine's eyes grew dark, her voice low and cutting. "Kody felt he was the center of the family, the sun, and we were all planets spinning around him. He wanted obedience, total loyalty. Question him, even slightly, and he'd punish you." "Punish you in what way?" Emily asked, her voice guarded. Christine's hands shook as she clasped the witness stand's edge. "He'd use silence. He'd withhold affection. He'd turn us against each other. Me, Janelle, Meri, even the kids. He demanded us to struggle for his acceptance, to show that we deserved his notice." The jury looked at each other uncomfortably. Even the judge's face darkened. Emily moved in closer, her tone harder now. "Mrs. Brown, you spoke of the children. Can you explain to the court how Kody treated Garrison and the other children?" Christine's breath came in sharp gasps. For a second she couldn't manage to speak. She looked at Garrison's smiling photo on the screen, and whispered almost to herself, "Oh Garrison." Emily waited patiently, giving her time. Finally Christine raised her head, her eyes shining with tears but blazing with fury. Garrison was one of the strongest, kindest souls I've ever known, but Kody didn't see that. To Kody, Garrison was a threat. He was independent, outspoken. He wasn't afraid to call out Kody's hypocrisy. The room was filled with whispers. Robyn, who was sitting behind Kody, gasped loudly. Christine went on, her voice rising with each sentence. It all came to a boil during the pandemic. Kody created these extreme rules for the family. The children weren't permitted to see one another, to have friends over, to do anything without his approval. But as he was locking his own children in, he was hanging out with Robyn and the kids all day. Her words sliced through the room like a knife. Christine turned, addressing the jury directly. Garrison noticed. He noticed how unjust it was, and he had the courage to say something about it. Emily chimed in gently. What did he get for it? Christine's eyes welled up again. Kody attacked him. He was telling Garrison that he was disrespectful, disloyal. Kody yelled at him in front of everyone one night, shouting, "You're selfish. You don't care about this family." Christine's voice cracked as she repeated the words. Garrison stood there, quiet, tears in his eyes, and when he finally broke his silence, all he said was, "Dad, I just want to be part of your life." The courtroom was quiet, the heaviness of her words, heavy in the air. Emily swallowed hard, clearly shaken, but continued on. How did Kody react to that? Christine's expression turned cold. He turned his back on him. He told Garrison to leave, and he wasn't kidding. After that night, Garrison wasn't allowed in Kody's house. A stunned gasp went through the room. Christine's voice was shaking with anger and sorrow as she went on. Garrison called me that night, sobbing. He said, "Mom, I feel like an orphan, and my dad is alive." I didn't know how to reassure him. How do you mend a wound like that? Christine took a breath, steadying herself. Her fists were clenched now, perched on the stand. Emily's tone became more frantic. "Mrs. Brown, did you ever attempt to speak with Kody about this? Did you attempt to get him to make up with Garrison?" Christine laughed scornfully again. "Yes, of course I did. Time and time again. I pleaded with him to call Garrison, to just appear. But Kody wouldn't do it. He said Garrison needed to apologize first. He told me, and I quote, 'I won't pursue a son who doesn't respect me.'" The jury appeared flabbergasted. Christine's voice grew louder, fueled by decades of rage. "And that's the issue. Kody believed being a father was going to be about being adored. It had nothing to do with love. It had everything to do with control." Emily gave her a moment, then asked, "Mrs. Brown, can you describe the days before Garrison died?" Christine's breath caught a second time, but she pushed herself to talk. Garrison was struggling. He was alone, abandoned. "I called Kody and said, 'Your son needs you. Please just call him.' Do you know what Kody told me?" Christine faced Kody, her eyes locked on him now. Her tone was ice cold, each word precise and calculated. He said, "I'm busy. He'll be fine." Gasps filled the courtroom. Kody banged his hand on the table, exclaiming, "That's a lie." The judge slammed her gavel with rage. "Mr. Brown, sit down or face contempt." Kody sank back into his chair, his face contorted with rage, but he said no more. Christine's eyes burned with tears and indignation. The next day, she said, her voice shaking, "Garrison was gone." The resulting silence was oppressive. Even the reporters in the rear were too shocked to type. Christine's body convulsed as she clutched the edge of the stand. "I will never forget that phone call," she whispered. "Hearing that my baby was dead, and knowing that while he was dying, his father was too busy to care." Emily came close, her own eyes shining. "Mrs. Brown, why did you choose to testify today?" Christine's posture stiffened, her sorrow changing to steel. "Because Garrison can't speak for himself. Because for far too long, Kody has dictated the terms. And because the truth is important, even if it kills us." Her words rang out, echoing in the courtroom. Kody didn't merely fail Garrison. He failed all of us. And it's time the world knew who he is. The gallery exploded. Sobs, gasps, whispers, pandemonium filling the space. The judge pounded her gavel, crying out for order.
Christine climbed down from the witness stand, her head held high. As she walked by Kody, she did not glance his way. But those last words of hers hung in the air, like a specter of truth. You don't get to rewrite this story, Kody. Not anymore. Christine fell into Janelle's arms, both women crying openly, as Meri enfolded them in a shaking hug. And across the room, Kody sat immobile, his complexion ashen, his defense in shambles, and his kingdom of deceit starting to crumble. The prosecution had gotten blood, but the war was by no means over. Then it would be Kody's turn to testify, and the world would get his version of events. The atmosphere in the courtroom was charged, almost stifling. Christine's testimony still lingered over everyone, casting a heavy veil of sorrow and anger. Reporters typed away furiously, cameras popping like lightning and thunder. It was like the ending of a film, but this was life, and the prices were life-changing. The judge's gavel came down sharply over the pandemonium. Order in the court, I will have order. Judge Ramirez shouted, her voice crisp and authoritative. Slowly the din subsided. Reporters ceased to whisper, relatives dried their tears, and all eyes turned to the defense table, to Kody Brown. The man at the eye of the whirlwind sat stiff in his chair. His usually smooth slicked hair was mussed, his eyes bloodshot and unfocused. He had said little throughout the trial, other than his explosion during Christine's testimony. But now it was his time. Kody's lawyer, a shrewd analytical man named Mark Ellison, rose to his feet and zipped up his jacket.
The defense calls Kody Brown to the stand. Gasp filled the room. Robyn held the armrest of her seat so hard her knuckles whitened. Meri, Janelle, and Christine exchanged glances, each one of them fervently wishing that justice would be done. Kody stood up slowly, his shoulders braced, as if a man going to his own death. But there was more to his stance as well. Defiance. This was his opportunity to take back the story, to make the world believe that he wasn't a monster, but a misconstrued father. As he walked towards the stand, Christine glared at him with sheer venom. Kody didn't look at her. He wouldn't provide her with that satisfaction just yet. The bailiff moved forward, Bible in hand. Do you swear to tell the truth? The whole truth? And nothing but the truth, so help you God? Kody clenched his jaw. I do, he growled, voice gruff but firm. He sat taking a sharp breath, as if bracing for battle. Mark came forward, his voice cool and measured. Mr. Brown, this trial has painted a very dark picture of you. Before we proceed, do you have anything that you'd like to tell the jury? Kody leaned forward, his hands together in a tight clench. When he spoke, his voice cracked, a combination of pain and fury. Yes, I've been sitting here, listening to everyone take my words, bend my actions, and I have to tell you this. I loved my son. I love all my children. He took a deep breath, his chest rising and falling with emotion. But what Christine and the others aren't saying to you is that love isn't necessarily simple. Sometimes being a father involves difficult decisions. The gallery shifted uncomfortably. Robyn wiped her eyes with a tissue, nodding in agreement. Mark nodded encouragingly at Kody. Tell us about your relationship with Garrison. Kody swallowed hard, wincing as he fought to maintain control. Garrison he was my warrior, strong, brave, independent. But when he got older, he began to question me, and in our family that can lead to chaos. Christine snorted in derision, prompting a warning look from the judge. Kody went on, his voice shaking just a little. I tried to teach him, to show him responsibility. But the pandemic, all of a sudden, things got out of hand. Garrison not only challenged my rules, he disobeyed them. He left when I instructed him to remain indoors, endangering the whole family's health. He turned, finally catching sight of Christine's tear-stained face. No, that's true, Christine. Christine shook her head wildly. You sequestered us. You took the pandemic as an excuse to dominate all of us. The judge banged the gavel. Mrs. Brown, you will hold your tongue until you are summoned to the stand once more. Kody faced the jury again, his voice growing loud. I was not attempting to control them. I was protecting them. I had 18 children to look after. 18. If one became ill, it could have been passed on to all of them.
But nobody cared about that. All they heard was a stern father. When in fact, I was frightened. He took a deep breath, catching his wind, allowing his words to have time to register. Mark walked slowly, his voice understanding. Mr. Brown, Christine stated that you completely severed yourself from Garrison, that you told him to go. Did you? Kody's eyes welled up. No, he stated emphatically. I did not cast my son aside. I told him we both needed space. He was angry and I was angry. I thought, if we cooled off we could fix things. His voice broke slightly as he whispered. I never imagined we wouldn't get that chance. For the first time the jury seemed to soften. Some even looked sympathetic. Christine's lips trembled as she shook her head, mouthing leer. Mark seized the moment, pressing forward. Mr. Brown, tell us when the last time was that you talked to Garrison.
Kody's face contorted with anguish. It was a week prior to his death. He replied, his throat raw. We fought, yes. But I said I loved him. I said no matter what, he was my son. He brushed at his eyes, his body shaking, and then, the next thing I knew, Christine was on the phone, yelling. I didn't even recognize what she was telling me at first. When finally it dawned on me that my boy was dead, it felt like someone had pulled out my heart. The courtroom was still, except for Robyn's muted tears. Kody faced the jury, desperation etched into every contour of his face. I wasn't there when he needed me most, and I will never forgive myself for that. But that doesn't mean I didn't care. It doesn't mean I caused his death. His words hung in the air, heavy and raw. Christine's face crumpled, but she remained silent, tears streaming down her cheeks. Mark nodded solemnly. Mr. Brown, it is alleged by the prosecution that you emotionally abused your family, that you built a poisonous atmosphere which led Garrison to desperation. How do you answer that? Kody's expression changed. The weeping father was lost, replaced by the warrior. That's a lie, he spat out, voice acidic. Yes, I had rules. Yes, I had expectations. But every father does. They want to portray me as some sort of tyrant. But the reality is, I was the only one keeping this family afloat. He spun around, hissing at Christine now. Christine wanted to abandon me years ago. She despised me even before Garrison's death. And now she's exploiting this tragedy to destroy me. Gasps murmured through the gallery. Even Meri's mouth fell open in shock. Mark held up a hand to silence the room. Mr. Brown, are you accusing Christine of having ulterior motives? Yes, Kody exclaimed, his face flushed with anger. She's projecting herself as the ideal mother and me as the bad guy. But ask yourself this. If she was such an ideal mother, why didn't she step in and stop Garrison from making the decisions he made? Why didn't she seek him some help? Christine rose to her feet, tears falling down her cheeks. Don't you dare try to blame me, she yelled. You left him, you made him feel worthless. The judge's gavel pounded again and again. Order, order, Mrs. Brown. Sit down at once. Christine slumped back into her seat, crying hysterically. Kody's chest rose and fell as he went on, his voice cracking. I wasn't perfect. God knows I wasn't perfect. But I loved my son. And now through Christine's enmity, my whole life is being torn to shreds. He addressed the jury a final time, his eyes begging. Don't let them make a grieving father into a killer. Please, don't take from me what little I have left. The room hung still for a moment. Even Christine's tears ceased. The air was so charged it was painful to breathe. At last Mark withdrew, his voice steady and final. No other questions, Your Honor. The judge nodded solemnly. Mr. Brown, you can step down. Kody rose slowly, his legs shaking. As he walked past Christine, he hesitated for an instant, leaning in to whisper, so she alone could hear. You think you've won, but this isn't over. Christine glared at him, her fists bunched. As Kody sat back down next to Robyn, the gallery exploded into whispers, journalists scribbling wildly. The trial was not yet finished, but one thing was certain, the lines had been drawn, and the last confrontation was imminent. The courtroom was like a pressure cooker that was about to burst. The atmosphere was heavy with sweat, tears and unexpressed fury. Each and every individual in that room, the jury, the parents, the media, realized that the next few minutes would seal the fate of everyone forever. Kody Brown sat stiff at the defense table, his fists interlaced so tightly they were white. Next to him, Robyn gripped a tissue, swaying back and forth, muttering prayers silently. Across the room, Christine, Janelle and Meri stood together like a phalanx, their faces white and smeared with tears. They didn't say a word, they didn't stir, they simply waited. The door to the judge's chambers creaked, and the bailiff moved forward. "All rise," he ordered, his voice booming like a bell of judgment. The whole room rose, hearts thumping. The judge, hard as stone, went back to her bench and put on her glasses. "You can be seated," she said coolly. But there was 1,000-storm weight to her voice. Everyone remained seated, the scraping of the chairs against the floor abnormally loud in the hush. The jury entered the room, the foreman in the lead, a tall, grave-faced man, with a creased sheet of paper in his shaking hands. No one glared at anyone. Their faces were white and haunted. They had deliberated for hours, in the same room shut in together, attempting to determine the destiny of a family wrecked by disaster. The foreman appeared before the judge, his voice trembling as he addressed him. "Your Honor, we have arrived at a verdict." The judge nodded once. "Proceed, please." The final moments before judgment, Christine's fingers knotted in her lap, her nails piercing her flesh. She leaned over toward Janelle and whispered, "No matter what, Garrison will understand that we fought for him." Janelle nodded, her lips clamped together hard enough to keep from crying. Robyn across the aisle grasped Kody's arm. "They'll understand the truth," she whispered frantically. "They have to." Kody did not answer. His face was immobile, but in his mind his thoughts were a maelstrom of anger, fear, and rebellion. He had spent the past hour replaying each testimony, every sobbing accusation. Christine's words rang in his mind like a curse. Kody didn't just fail Garrison, he failed all of us. His jaw tightened. "No," he thought, "I didn't fail them, they failed me." "The verdict is," read the foreman, unfolded the paper with a hesitancy that was palpable, his hands visibly shaking. All eyes in the room were on him. All breaths were suspended. "We, the jury in the case of the state versus Kody Brown, find the defendant." The room seemed to contract, the walls closing in. Christine clutched Janelle's hand so hard that both women's knuckles went white. Robyn hid her face on Kody's shoulder, unable to bear it. "Guilty of emotional abuse and neglect, leading to the death of Garrison Brown." The words fell like a thunderclap. Gasps tore through the courtroom. Christine sobbed, sinking into Janelle's arms. Meri buried her face, her entire body trembling. Robyn shrieked, a raw, animalistic sound of shock. "No, no, this isn't right," she cried, grasping Kody's arm as if it was a lifeline. Kody did not budge. For an instant he sat very still, like a man suspended in time. His mouth was open, his eyes wide, as if his mind wasn't fully capable of taking in what he'd heard. Then, anger flared. He leapt to his feet, his chair clattering to the ground. "This is a witch hunt," he thundered, his words ringing off the walls. "They twisted everything around. You think this is justice? This is a setup. Christine and the others. They conspired against me. They turned my family against me." The judge's gavel came down again and again. "Mr. Brown, sit down right now, or you will be held in contempt." But Kody was past reason now. He pointed a trembling finger at Christine, his face red and contorted with rage. "You wanted this, Christine. You wanted to kill me, and you killed Garrison for the purpose. You're the actual monster here." Christine got up, her tears disappearing into cold, unrelenting fury. "No, Kody," she stated, her tone firm but icily cold. "You killed yourself. You left behind your son, and now you're reaping what you've sown." The courtroom descended into pandemonium. Reporters yelling, relatives sobbing, the bailiff dashing to grab Kody as he attempted to lunge forward. "Order! Order!" the judge thundered, banging her gavel. The judge's two bailiffs pinned Kody back in his seat by the arms. He fought wildly, veins swelling in his neck, until at last he slumped, defeated, his chest pumping. Christine's moment of truth. The judge addressed the courtroom, her expression grim. "Order must be maintained. This is a court of law." Slowly the noise died down, leaving only the sound of Christine's quiet sobs. The judge's tone softened slightly as she addressed the room. This case has been one of the most painful and complex I've ever presided over. While no verdict can bring Garrison Brown back, this court hopes today's decision brings some measure of justice to his memory. Christine raised her head, her face streaked with tears aglow with grief and relief. She dug into her pocket and produced a tiny photograph of Garrison, his wide smile caught in perpetuity. Clutching it to her heart, she whispered, "We did it, baby. We told your story." Janelle had an arm around her, weeping quietly. Meri bent in as well, the three women holding each other in a bittersweet hug. In the distance, Robyn was devastated, crying as if her world had come to an end. She held onto Kody, pleading with him to fight, to appeal, to do something. But Kody sat silently, empty and shattered, his kingdom of domination in ruins. For the first time, he seemed completely powerless. The sentencing. The judge cleared her throat, her tone resuming its formal edge. "Kody Brown, you are hereby remanded into custody pending sentencing. Considering the gravity of the charges and the evidence before this court suggests a sentence of 15 years for neglect and emotional abuse." Christine gasped, slapping her hand over her mouth. Janelle grasped her shoulder, streaming tears down her face. Robyn let out another agonized scream. "No, you can't take him away. He didn't do anything wrong." She attempted to move forward, but a bailiff restrained her. Kody's eyes fluttered wildly about the room, panic at last shattering his rage. 15 years, he croaked, his voice shattering. You can't do this to me. I'm the father. I'm the head of this family." The judge's eyes were cold. "Mr. Brown, that is exactly why you are being held accountable. Being a father isn't about control. It is about love and responsibility. This court has determined that you are at fault in both." Kody collapsed back into his seat, all fight leaving him. There were no more words, no more excuses for once. The aftermath as the bailiffs closed in to take Kody away. Christine stepped forward. Her voice was gentle but firm, full of the resolve of a mother who had lived through the unthinkable. "Kody," she said softly, "it's not about winning or losing. It's about Garrison. And you'll have to live with what you did to him, every day." Kody didn't glance at her. His head was low, his frame shuddering. The bailiffs took him away, clanking chains, and just like that, the man who had once held his family under an iron fist was gone. Christine turned, addressing the gallery. Reporters crowded closer, their cameras flashing. For a moment, she considered speaking to them, telling the world what this trial had really meant. But instead, she simply held up Garrison's photo, her voice breaking as she whispered, "This was for you, my son. You'll never be forgotten." Outside the courthouse. The courthouse steps were swarmed with reporters, microphones thrust forward like weapons. Christine, Janelle, and Meri stepped out first, accompanied by supporters and relatives. They said nothing initially. They just stood united, mourning and empowered. Eventually Christine went to the microphones. "Today wasn't about revenge," she declared, her voice strong and unhesitant. "It was about truth. It was about ensuring no one else has to endure like Garrison did." The crowd cheered and wept. Across the way, alone, Robyn cried quietly, as Kody was lifted into a waiting transport van. He glanced at his head once, his eyes meeting Christine's for only an instant. Then the door closed, shutting him off from the world. The final line, as the sun dipped behind the courthouse. Christine clung to Janelle and Meri. Through sobs she whispered, "This isn't the end of our pain, but it's the start of our healing." And with that, the Brown family moved away, forever transformed, forever marked but finally free.